my first idea was like, okay, what in my life can I relate to hell? And I'm like, school. So
Okay.
the problem is, like, I've broken down every circle, said like what it consists of people-wise, what their punishment is, and what I can compare it to in school. Problem is, most of my comparisons, most people wouldn't get because I've had a pretty I haven't had the average high school experience.
Okay.
So like what I'm looking for is something that people can relate to. Like I compare where did I put calculus? I put like calculus as a violence circle because it's literally like getting beaten in the head over and over and over again. But most people can't relate to calculus.
I completely agree with you. Like I think you're a lot of the times your initial feelings are not wrong. Like calculus is hard. It's hard. It's one of the only classes I think it was the only class I dropped in high school because it was just too hard for me. So I don't want to step in here, but like you're right.
Okay.
Is what you're trying to say that like you don't think most, because like I didn't take calculus. Like is that what you mean, that like not
like
everyone?
The majority of kids here haven't taken calculus.
Okay. So in that case, you just have to find something similar that you can use. So I imagine most people have taken algebra, right?
Yeah.
So use algebra.
Or trig. Everyone takes trig, and that's how.
Sure. Like if you're like you just have to find, like in that case you just kind of like go to a more common math class.
Yeah.
What's another example that's like being hard for you?
I put my Thursday bus under gluttony because in gluttony you're like rained on by like icy rain while you lie in a puddle. My bus is 30 minutes late every week, so it's literally like that during winter.
Okay.
And most people, like, their Thursday bus might be on time. I don't know.
So what you could do instead, like this is going to switch a couple things up, but if you wanted to, like I realize that like the ironic punishments in the actual text of Dante's Inferno aren't directly related to the sins involved. Like in terms of like icy rain has nothing to do with actually eating food, right?
Yeah.
But the like average person reading your story isn't going to make that connection because the average person reading your story won't have read Dante's Inferno.
Yeah.
So maybe instead of that, you could make the bus being late related to sloth. Because while that might not necessarily be true to the original text,
Yeah.
it seems more appropriate given like what your average reader is going to understand. Of course, then that edges out whatever you have for sloth, and means you have to come up with
Which
something
one
else.
is sloth?
Laziness.
Yeah.
That was also a box.
That's limbo, right?
Maybe.
My other idea for gluttony was actually do like high school food because I've never stepped in the cafeteria for obvious reasons, but I bet
That could
most
work too.
people really fun.
Yeah, that could work too.
Another idea I had was at the top where it's like not as bad to start like really cartoony, colorful drawings. Then as you get down, like they become more monotone and more detailed. So it becomes like more horrifying as you get down.
That's a good idea. I like that. I think my other question is like you're gonna have to come up with visual ways to relate this. So like getting beaten over the head for algebra or calculus or whatever. What they're getting beaten over the head with has to be related to whatever it is that they're studying.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can't just be like, oh, I have a bat and I'm beating over the head because like this gives you a headache. So what are they getting beaten over the head with?
My original idea was to like have a whiteboard with like a bunch of like basically like hieroglyphics on it, and like one kid just interrupts the teacher saying, "What do we need this for again?" He's like, "I'll tell you that later."
But like if the punishment is getting beaten over the head, you have to like. Did I understand that?
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So like spitballing, giant calculator, slide rule. No one uses slide rules anymore. That makes it better.
Oh, okay, so make it more like,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Like you only have so much time with this in terms of like your reader doesn't spend that long on the edge. You get like a second, if that.
Okay.
So like you have to telegraph
So, like,
things
hyperbole.
quick. Right.
Yeah.
Like, and you have to telegraph things in a way that is unquestioningly clear.
Okay.
So like, if your choice is between being clever and being clear, it's always better to go clear.
Okay.
So, like, I think the other thing. So, how many pages do you guys have for these? One. And you, let's see.
Okay.
And you said that like you were going to have this whole sequence of events with with the algebra hell, where like a kid raises their hand and says,
Well, like each circle would be one, like the page would be vertical, like, and then each panel would be a horizontal like, across, and it would be like, it's like a ring is like, when you think of a ring,
Yeah,
what it is,
yeah,
that
I
was
got
it.
you.
And then like my other idea was like sort of like a staircase design of the panels where it looked like you were going down through hell.
that's pretty cool. I could dig that. I think my main concern is that like you described a bunch of things happening in one panel, right? Like you said that for the algebra thing that
the
like
image has to be clearer and like more like quick.
right, and there can only be one thing happening in it. Like you can't have multiple things happening in a panel because you just don't have room.
Yeah.
And also time doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Like you can't like if somebody is yeah, exactly. Like unless you're drawing the Flash, in which case you can draw him doing a lot of things at once. But you're not drawing the Flash, so you're kind of stuck. Yeah, that's all I got. Other than that, I think it's a really cool idea. I like the staircase thing. That's just me, and it might take up a lot of room that you don't necessarily need. But you could edge your dialogue art out into the like unused space by the staircase stuff, and then you're like kind of devoting all of that other space into just the images.
Yeah.
Cool.